Okay, very excited. Got the DC conversion done. Got the ground floated on this 07 Gas EC300. So my ground wire that I floated, I attached to a yellow wire and insulated it and ran it up beside the existing yellow wire. And there's also an existing white wire in here also that apparently are both AC power. I just used the yellow wire. You can see the white wire looping back on itself here and just tucked in. There's nothing attached to it. And so this is one of the yellow wires, and this is the other yellow wire. And no, these are not permanent connections. These are just while I'm putting everything together and testing it and making sure everything's working so I can take it apart easy and troubleshoot it if I need to. Initially, I'd made a wiring mistake up here with the headlight, and I wasn't getting any power to the headlight, and I thought that my connection had broken down here where I had floated the ground. And so I just took these off here and made sure I had continuity between the two wires, and I did. And then I checked each wire to make sure it didn't ground to the frame. Sort of like Trailtech has a YouTube video that's really good on diagnosing your, checking your stator. So basically those two yellow wires come in here to the regular rectifier, and then the output wires here, of course there's a ground wire that comes off, there's a red wire, and then there's a red and yellow wire. So what I did was, basically, I followed the directions that this guy, kdxrider.net, had, and if you just search kdxrider.net rectifier floating ground, if you just type those in, this is the first link that comes up, and it's just so well written. I was just like, he's like, here's what you got, here's what you got to cut out. And I didn't cut everything out initially like he said. I tried to use the existing wiring, and I think there were some things that were crossing over, and I don't know what was going on. But I ended up finally, and I couldn't get it to work, so I finally just cut these out like he said. I just cut it right back at the headlight, right at the back of the tail light. Took the light switch out of this system. I didn't really cut it out, but I took it out of the loop, took the AC regulator out, of course, and that leaves you with this. And then you add your battery and rectifier regulator, you mount those, and then you wire it up. And so basically I just took, like he did, I took a red wire, I ran it from the headlight to the tail light, from the tail light up to the headlight, and I worked everything off of that, or tied everything into that. And then the ground wire from the headlight to the tail light, I also tied the ground in right here. That's what this black wire is right here. Goes back to the tail light, and also ties into the battery, which is what they did here, tied it into the battery, to the regulator rectifier into the battery. But this power wire is a little bit different. I used Trailtech's version here, and they've got, of course, they explained this same option here that this guy's doing here with just the red wire. But Trailtech's third wire, the red and yellow wire, you can use for a couple options. So basically my red wire comes off, and that's just dedicated to battery charging, just like it is right here. It comes off the regulator rectifier, goes to battery. Okay, hopefully this is showing up. And then the red-yellow wire, I just tied that into my red wire that went from the headlight to the tail light, and that powers the headlight, each end of the headlight and tail light. And I also tied in the existing wiring for the brake switches. So those come off this red-yellow wire, and I think those are yellow wires going to each one, and then it's a white wire that comes back, and that white wire we just brought back here and attached to the tail light for the brake light side. Okay, so back to this red and yellow wire here. You come off here, and the cool part about this is I just tied this into my red wire that goes from the headlight to the tail light, and so that gives juice to that wire. And this red and yellow wire gives you a couple options. If you use this option of the red and yellow wire as the power wire, it allows you to adjust the relay timer, which means that when you shut the engine off, it'll maintain power to those accessories, the headlight or the taillight, for however long and you can adjust it right here, and it's like 2 to 30 seconds, I think is what I remember right. You can adjust it for as little as 2 or as much as 30. I don't know where I got that, because it doesn't say that here. Maybe I read that somewhere else. In any event, the first time I tested it was like 7 seconds. The second time it was like 16 seconds. So shut the engine off, and so power stays going to everything from the battery to the headlight to the tail light. And then, so that kind of remembered, oh yeah, shut my headlight off. But the timer will actually turn it off. The other thing you can do is which I guess is good if you stop on a road or your engine dies on a road. Maybe it'll give you enough time if it stays on for 30 seconds to get your bike off the road and people can see your tail light if it's in the dark or if you're on the trail or something. And then the other thing is you can adjust the voltage dial. And I did that a little bit. Initially I had made a mistake in the wiring, and I thought maybe I'd blown the bulbs because I couldn't get any of my lights to work. And so the voltage was reading 14 volts at the headlight, and I ended up turning it back down to like 12, thinking I'd overvolted it. Once I fixed the wiring problem, I realized that wasn't the problem. I've turned it back up to 13.25, and hopefully that won't overcharge anything. Okay, so I should have enough gas in the carburetor here just for a quick demo. So, taillight comes on, stays on all the time. Headlight, low, high. And brakes, rear brake, and then we'll kill it. So the headlight will stay on also until it times out. Should be any time here. So about 20 seconds or so. Headlights off, taillights off. So if the cooling fan was running, it would still, run and pull some juice. So that 20 seconds, let's just see here. Still 12.75 volts, which is pretty good. Now, one other thing just of interest is, that's DC voltage, of course. We're going to do a quick thing with AC voltage here. Okay, now I've disconnected the power going to the regulator rectifier. Set this for AC voltage. And just make sure we're not touching anything anywhere. This one popped off. Okay, let's see how many AC volts this bike is putting out, this existing stator, with the ground floated. That's about 25 volts. Up to 50 volts, back down to 25 volts. So the regulator rectifier is doing its job. And that's a good baseline. Now the other test that we can do here, just to test the integrity of the, I guess I need to take that off. We can test the integrity of the stator is, I'll just do it without this. We're going to set this on the tone for the continuity check. So that's positive, right? That means this continuity. So what we want to do is make sure there's not a broken continuity. Obviously it's charging, so there's not a problem. But we could connect these two wires here, and not those two. How about these two? So those are the two yellow wires, and we have continuity going down to the, those are the two yellow wires that go down to the stator. One was the existing one was the yellow wire that I floated the ground on. So that obviously has nice continuity, and then you can check for ground, which you can check anywhere really, but we can connect one wire and then connect it to any ground anywhere, and there's no tone anywhere. And then we can check the other wire for ground, and there's no tone anywhere. So a ground continuity from one of these AC wires that comes out of the stator to ground would be bad. So I'm going to replace the stator anyway. Just a quick show you why. So hopefully this will show up. This is the coil that I floated the ground off of back here. It's well insulated. What concerned me was this right here. And I think I could epoxy that, but I'm worried about that movement and vibration. I might go ahead and epoxy it just right now, just to pull the stator off and epoxy it, just to hold it in place until Trail Tech stator shows up. The rest of these aren't moving. So, but that one's kind of vibrating up and down. You can see that. So I'm kind of worried about that, and I don't want this to leave me stranded. That's the lighting side. It's not the ignition side, so my bike probably wouldn't die, but I might lose my lights. And so the KTM stator that I ordered supposedly has these same measurements, and so this will be a bit of an experiment with Trail Tech's stator to put it on here. And I'll put that on in the next few days and make another video. And I'll probably replace this pickup coil also, or the this coil that fires, tells the CDI when to fire. I forget what it's called. We'll probably replace that too. The only thing I have to figure out is the polarity of the wiring that goes to the CDI, because the colors of wires for the KTM isn't going to match the gas. So I'll have to figure that out. That'll be the next step. Okay, real excited. Going to get this back together and take it for a ride.